Reading Russia's Regional Identities and Initiatives. We can all take a sigh of relief now. I normally would start my remarks with the unending thanks to the organizational team. But this time, because we've got time constraints and two upper administrators who kindly have offered to open the conference and welcome all of us, but have to be someplace at 9:30, we're going to start with them. We are deeply honored today to have the President of the University of Virginia, Teresa Sullivan, and Vice Provost for Global Affairs, Jeffrey Legro, help us open our conference. We're going to start with President Sullivan, who is a sociologist specializing in labor force demography, the middle class and debt, and questions of access to study in college. Her connection to Russia is through her husband, a law professor at UVA, who has served as consultant to the Russian Duma on questions of religious liberty. Please join me in welcoming President Sullivan.
Добро пожаловать. Is that close enough? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome our out-of-town guests to Charlottesville and to greet my UVA colleagues, faculty, and students. Our invited guests traveled from around the world to be here this week. Thank you all for taking time from your busy schedule to participate in this symposium. The topics you will discuss this week are important to our understanding of modern Russia as you examine the ecological, political, and cultural identities of Russia's regions, as well as the developmental and sustainability challenges faced by the people who inhabit its vast geography. As many of you know, I lived most of my adult life in Texas, another place with vast geography. And when I left there, I was the provost of the University of Texas system, 15 universities, 185,000 students, run by a group of 9 regents who were the equivalent of the Board of Visitors here. So one of the regents one day asked me what I knew to be a very political question. Why do we even teach Russian at the University of Texas? And so I gave him a political answer. I said, they have the world's second largest nuclear arsenal. We ought to be able to talk to them. But there are many more answers than that fairly shallow and political answer that I gave. I think it's appropriate to have this conference at UVA because our founder, Thomas Jefferson, was also the United States' first Secretary of State, and he was one of our nation's first global thinkers. He developed many of his ideas about politics, economics, and other fields based on comparative study following his own experiences abroad. He loved languages and learning. And even in retirement at Monticello, his home, he received visitors from many countries. It's also appropriate for you to hold this symposium here because we are deeply committed to making UVA a truly global university. Expanding our global activities is a top priority in our strategic plan, which is called the Cornerstone Plan. Our efforts in recent years have been focused and intentional, driven by the recognition that in the 21st century, a top-flight university must be global. Worldwide recessions, epidemic disease, climate change, and cyber terrorism are indications that geographic boundaries no longer contain our problems. Our faculty members conduct research in many areas that are of interest to every country, such as health, development, and sustainability. The deans of our Commerce School and our Darden School of Business assure me that global business is a redundant term, and international law is a leading specialty in our School of Law. Our internationalization efforts cut across the entire university to include the curriculum, research, extracurricular activities, experiential learning, community service, and faculty and staff development. In one example, we recently established the UVA Center for Global Inquiry and Innovation, a supporter of this conference. The center advances cross-disciplinary and global research at the university, and it fosters partnerships around the world. Our new Global Studies major will have 250 students this fall. Through our Institute for the Humanities and Global Cultures, also a supporter of this conference, UVA partners with Delhi University, Oxford, the School of Oriental and African Studies in London, and Nanjing University's Institute for the Advanced Studies in the Humanities and Social Sciences in China. Last month, we opened an office in Shanghai. In recognition of these and other efforts, this year, UVA was one of 5 universities in the United States to be awarded a 2015 Senator Paul Simon Award for Campus Internationalization to highlight our excellence in global education. So your symposium is a wonderful addition to the many global activities already going on at UVA. I hope that the collaborations that you begin today will bring you years of fruitful partnerships. And I hope that through your work, you will continue to advance our appreciation for Russia and for the complex global society in which we live. Have a wonderful conference.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Our next speaker is Vice Provost Jeffrey Legro, who is the Taylor Professor of Politics, specializing in international relations. He double majored in Russian and economics as an undergraduate at Middlebury College, and he was inducted into the National Slavic Honor Society and has been on several research trips to Russia. With sort of very quickly, because he has to go teach his class at 9:30, I introduce to you Vice Provost Legro. Please help me welcome him.
Доброе утро и добро пожаловать. Однажды я говорил по-русски, ну, это было давным-давно. Сейчас еще помню немножко, но я хочу сказать, что это огромная честь, что вы здесь сегодня. Это большой ивент для нас. И сейчас, может быть, немножко по-английски. So it's a pleasure to be here and to try out my rusty Russian. It is true that I once majored in Russian and have also done a significant amount of research in Russian, but that too was 20 years ago. And it probably speaks to the trajectory of the field. I went to graduate school initially to study Soviet foreign policy, Soviet military affairs, and after 2 years in graduate school was intrigued by international relations. That year was 1987, and I switched into that broader field. I don't think I left it because I foresaw some decline in the field. I left it because of my intellectual interests. But there was difficult times for the field, and for better or for worse, at least in my end of it, political science, the field is back. And the important thing, of course, is that the field never went away. The study of Russian culture, history, has been continuing to be rich, and I have to say some of the most meaningful experiences for me in my undergraduate education were translating Russian poetry, something that sticks with me to today. The topic of the conference is incredibly timely. Been working on a edited book that looks at comparative strategy across 7 different nations, shaping nations, most of them emerging nations, but also with countries like Germany and Russia involved. And one of the #1 findings in that effort is the importance of identity debates in different countries. And you are directly addressing that topic in an incredibly important way, not by looking at this uniform concept, national identity, but looking at Russia's regional identities, which I think really is the sophisticated way to do that. And the thing that is most impressive to me is the way you are weaving humanities, social science, and sciences into one intellectual event. And in my mind, that is the wave of the future. It is the wave of the humanities, it is the wave of our discovery in pushing forward what used to be known as area studies. The importance of cross-cultural understanding and language has been made clear to me many times over the years, but perhaps most poignantly when I was an undergraduate studying in Moscow during the Cold War. And during that time, I got drafted to work for the ABC News Bureau, because at those times they only had a correspondent, a cameraman, and a sound technician. Their sound technician got caught out of the country for visa reasons. I became the sound technician, and I thought I was the young journalist. I came in one morning and I said, "We have to cover this story. Students are gathering at Moscow University to commemorate Lenin's death." And they looked at me and they said, "That's interesting, Jeff. We're going to be working on filming some plays. Tennessee Williams plays were showing at the time. It's very controversial." I came in the next day and they said, "You didn't tell us John Lennon's death." So Lenin, of course, had been shot in New York. Amazing global cross-cultural influence. And we did not cover that. In any case, I want to thank Professor Ida Close for pulling together this phenomenal conference. The topics look absolutely fascinating. It's a lot of work. We really appreciate what you've done. Желаю всем успехи. Надеюсь, что разговор будет прекрасно. Спасибо.
Thank you so much, President Sullivan and Vice Provost Legro, for those wonderful words. I'd like now to introduce the people that made this conference happen. They get lots of kudos. I think many of them will just be mentioned because they aren't here right now. Ani Kokobobo of the University of Kansas is, I think, at the hotel taking care of her baby at this point, so you'll meet her later. She's one of the organizers. So Gisela Erbslu is the other organizer. So Ani put together the beautiful Russia's Peripheries website. So that's something we'll be working with as we go on with this project into the future. Gisela helped invite Russian and European scholars, so I'm very grateful to both of them for all that work. Kathleen Thompson is, here she is. She gets the biggest hand. She has been that tireless assistant with undying good humor and incredible efficiency, who's dealt with the mountains of logistical details, maps, schedules, etc. Gina Hutton, who isn't here, who's that very stylish person, blonde person, she's Californian, you can tell. When you see her walking around, thank her. She made this room happen, she made food happen. We're very grateful to her. Claude Levay and Michael Marsh Soloway and Robert in the back, I don't know your last name, Robert. Sorry? Holden, Robert Holden. Have designed and put into place the video and live streaming capacities of the conference. So, by the way, we're mindful of everyone who does not want their talk to be videotaped and spread around the internet. So we're officially videoing this conference. Please turn off your own iPhones, cell phones, cameras, etc. Please, no personal recording. And it's for very good reasons. I think every single person in this room understands that some of the people and things we're talking about are very sensitive. Okay, thanks to all the students who are helping us with lots of administrative and logistical details. So I'll just name them, even though some of them might not be here. Crystal Alawi, Maria Bakatkina, Sarah Bumpus, I think is in the back someplace, Samantha Guthrie, Zach Hoffman, Abigail Hone, Jill Martin-Uke, who's taking pictures over there, Tier Sanford, Madeline Stewart, Victoria Vutova, etc. I think I got everybody. So some initial thoughts about our conference. I'm just going to bring up some points. I thought our welcomers brought up some very good general points, and then we can use these as talking points as we go through and add our own. We're meeting at a time that has been described as Moscow's regathering of its lands. Some of the leading voices informing Russian neo-Eurasianist policy view Russia as heavily Moscow-centric. In the terms of our conference, current political forces are strongly centripetal. Another way of looking at it might be that Moscow is the face and voice of Russia, and the rest of Russia becomes other body parts, all of which create a landmass covering approximately 1/6 of the world's surface. A contrasting imagined geography of Russia is to view it as an archipelago of cities and spaces with huge expanses of hinterland surrounding them, a kind of land ocean. Supporting that image, another recent articulation calls Russia a land of broken links. I'm just throwing these out there for us to debate. Our goal is to learn much more about those other regional faces, voices, identities, projects, and initiatives, to bring them to the forefront as part of the human wealth and promise of Russia. Some of our main questions at this conference include how are identities being formed or rethought? And another sort of allied question is, where will the new come from? Where will new growth come from? New thinking or renewal? According to semiotic cultural theory, I had to mention this, of course. For example, in Lotman's Universe of the Mind, the center is the bearer of canonized rules and codes, which become hardened, as we've seen so many times in history. Well, the new often comes from a variety of peripheries, where settled rules are challenged, and you can define periphery however you want. Newness happens through the interaction of those two forces, centripetal and centrifugal. Are those forces at work in Russia's regions? And if so, how? So these are our questions for the conference. I'm going to end now, before we go to our first keynote speaker, with a couple of announcements. Just FYI, there's a book exhibit on our conference over at Alderman Library. You have a map, but it's out here and to the left. There's a World War II exhibit at Now Hall. Now Hall will be having dinner at Now Hall tomorrow night. We'll be on the first floor. This exhibit's on the second floor. It's about Jewish soldiers in World War II. Very interesting topic. There will be from 12 to 4:30-ish every day outside here in the hall, there'll be a book sale of books by our authors. So that could be of interest to you also. Then also this is the South Meeting Room. The Commonwealth Meeting Room is at the end of this corridor. You can, if you want to, leave coats in the Commonwealth Room. We'll be having dinner there tonight.